F1 drivers are bringing back the squiggly t-shirts this weekend, but it's not a fashion choice. This is actually a safety precaution. As long as it actually works, which a number of drivers are not necessarily sold on. This weekend, ahead of the Grand Prix in Texas, the FIA has declared their second ever heat hazard. Now, if you're new to the world of cargo fast, you may not know that the 2023 Qatar Grand Prix was one of the most brutal conditions that drivers have gone through in recent memory. Because of the temperature during that race, drivers were physically ill. Esteban Ocon threw up inside his helmet, Lance Stroll said that he passed out multiple times while driving, and Logan Sargent actually had to retire early from the race. After a number of driver incidents were reported, the FIA stated that they would start an investigation to figure out how they could make things safer when these heat conditions were going on. At the beginning of this season, they introduced the idea of a heat hazard. A heat hazard can be declared by the FIA as long as the forecast says that it's going to be 31 degrees Celsius or higher during that weekend. And if those conditions are met and the FIA does declare a heat hazard, the use of a driver cooling system becomes mandatory. Now, these driver cooling systems are actually pretty cool, which basically takes liquid, cools it down, and then pumps it back through these tubes that go up and down these squiggly t-shirts on the drivers. These cooling tubes are worn under their race suit, and the theory is as things get hotter inside the car, the cooling liquid should then keep the driver's core temperature at a lower level. This year, because the driver cooling system is still being tested, drivers do have the option to choose whether or not they want to use the cooling system. However, if a heat hazard is declared and drivers decide not to utilize the system, they do still have to meet the new minimum weight requirement for the car. During a heat hazard weekend like this one, for free practice, qualifying, and sprint qualifying, the minimum weight requirement is increased by 2 kilograms. And for the sprint race and the Grand Prix itself, that minimum requirement is increased by 5 kilograms. So if a driver elects not to utilize the driver cooling system, they will still have to add that extra weight to the car to make sure that they're not receiving an unfair advantage. But why would any driver choose not to have a cooling advantage? The drivers are actually not completely sold on this driver cooling system being the right option. Our first heat hazard of the season was already declared last race weekend in Singapore, and a number of drivers stated that they did not intend to wear the cooling vest at all because they were uncomfortable in it. Max Verstappen, for example, said that he doesn't like the way the tubes are on your chest and then the way that the belts are on top of that. However, George Russell, who won the race, did utilize the system and enjoyed it. But the actual reviews from drivers up and down the grid was that the cooling system, while it's an interesting concept, is not fully there yet. Because of how hot and humid it is in Singapore, a number of drivers found that the cooling system really only worked for a few laps. After that, some drivers said that the liquid actually got hot and was uncomfortable on their chest for the rest of the drive. Overall, it will be interesting to see how many drivers elect to use this cooling system this weekend, and also how much testing we need to have to see how much needs to be changed for these cooling systems to be better next year. Because during a heat hazard next year, it will not be optional. What do you think about the cooling innovation of the driver cooling system? And do you think we'll see more or less drivers utilize the system this weekend than we did in Singapore?